It's Wednesday, so you know what that means. The Hangover is about to be live. We in here. And I gotta tell you, I wasn't even gonna do a show this week. I wasn't even gonna do a show this week. And then something happened. Something happened and I felt the need to address it. But it's Wednesday. It's the Hangover time. We are live on 863 Seminole TV. And we about to get this thing popping. But let me show you. Let me show you what happened. Again, wasn't even gonna do a show this week. Wasn't much going on in the world of FSU, and then this happened.
About to go to you.
My time.
The greatest collegiate football player ever is Peter Warrick.
Peter Warrick, yes!
No, that's my partner.
Yes.
That's my partner.
If you gonna no, you can't say it. Percy.
Percy, oh,
Come on,
check it out.
dog.
Look, swear.
You can't say
swear
that.
No.
I love P.
No,
Dub.
listen.
I love P.
Listen,
Dub.
he didn't let me get my five,
I love P. Dub, bro.
Percy, bro. Percy Harvin.
Nah, dog.
Percy Harvin,
No, I
literally,
know-
natural football player. Yes. One of those guys that was just like, he had, you talking about dog, finesse, attitude, aura, like.
I know, I give you that, but P-Dub.
Hey, and them runs. Look at them Gator runs. Look at the Florida runs. We won 2 in 3 years.
I get that.
Who was the superstar in those runs?
I get that, but you.
Well, I say this. If Percy wasn't there, there's no Tebow.
You know,
Real talk.
man.
And I say that.
And
he know that.
I fight for
know
Tim all the
Real
time.
Talk. And anybody who's on that team knows if Percy's not there, there's no Tim Tebow. Real talk.
Great. You say Tebow's
Shout
the
out Lou
greatest.
Murph.
You say Tebow's the greatest college player ever. You say P-Dub. I say P-Dub. Where's Chef at? Chef, somebody got to break the tie.
Nah. P. Dub was a dog.
Yeah,
I seen him.
He had a mean dead leg. I mean, he hit him with the, I'm going to go in there. 5.
Did you play with him in Cincy?
Yeah.
What happened?
Remember he tore his knee up.
Oh,
He tore his knee up.
and that's what it was. But when he came in, was he still nice like that?
Yeah. When I got drafted, he was still nice. Him and Ron Dugans was there.
P. Dub wasn't as explosive as Percy Harvin.
I give you that. I give you that.
That don't mean nothing.
Yeah, but that don't
mean
like
nothing. That don't mean nothing.
Nah, Percy returned kicks, pound for pound. Percy returned kicks.
With no practice.
So did P. Dub.
P. Dub returned kicks. Percy returned punts. P. Dub returned punts. Percy played receiver. P. Dub played receiver. Percy played running back. P. Dub didn't do that.
He didn't have to do that.
Did y'all hear that foolishness? Did y'all hear the foolishness coming out of those Gators' mouths? So that's what we're talking about today. Coming up next on the Hangover, man. We in here. Let's go.
Need a horn in the drum roll.
Never talk to them boys that sit on them benches. I never talk to them boys that sit on them benches. I was in the game on 4th and inches.
What's going on, everybody? On this Wednesday evening, episode 21, we got the Hangover about to come at you. First off, we are on We are on Podbean and Spotify. So if you can't listen live when I go live on YouTube, you can catch the show after the fact on Podbean and Spotify. If you're driving, can't get to the YouTube app, texting, whatever the case, YouTube's funny, right? You can't do other things while you got the YouTube open. Well, you can always go to Podbean or Spotify. Find me the same way, 863 Seminole TV. And you can listen in there. So go on those platforms, support those platforms as well. But it is your boy POLK, a.k.a. 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 the goddamn truth. And here we go. Now, before we get into the debate, which I don't even think is a debate, but listening to that, I had to address it, man. I had to address it. But before we get into that, there was a quick little update on the 247 rankings. 247 did update their rankings today. They updated their own rankings, and they updated the composite rankings. And as they say, as the good Lord giveth, so does he take away. Travis Hunter goes up to the 3rd overall player in the nation. Kelly gets his 4th star. McAdoo, wide receiver out of Arkansas, drops to a 3-star. And Nico, Mark E.O., while he's still a 4-star on the composite, he did drop to a 3-star in the 247 rankings. Don't know what's going on there. So did A.J. Duffy. Now, A.J. Duffy's still a consensus 4-star, but he dropped in the rankings. M.J. Morris dropped. So every quarterback Florida State's in the mix for whatever reason has dropped in the rankings. But shout out to Kelly. He did get Najee Kelly. He did get his 4th star today. Hunter did move up in the rankings, even if it was only a spot. And that's about it as far as the rankings go. Okay. Now, y'all are here for one reason and one reason only. And one more thing before we get into that, let's hit this roll call up. 23 people in here. Hit the like button. Share it. Let people know we live and we about to dig into this PERCY HARVIN versus P-Dub debate. New King God's in the building talking about some Santana Moss. Don't know what he's not even in the conversation, but okay. Maiden Dade says Santana Moss. Okay, Santana Moss ain't even the best UM wide receiver ever, but we'll digress. Fila, Antonio Dupree, John White, Peter Shields, light him up, Wayne Tillman, Tyler, Terrence, and Raymond James, Island Boy, Jen, Peter Shields, 226, Tim. I ain't seen you in a minute, 226. How you been? Florida State Love, D. Thompson, Mayan King, and Sergeant AR10. What is going on? And yes, okay, Derek Neal, Jamal McDaniel, what is going on? Shout out to everybody. And as you come in, let me know and I'll shout you out. We are at 900. We are 100 away from 1,000. We are at 900 even. It's been a long road, but we're long road, but we're slowly getting where we want to be. So I cannot complain. I'd much rather grow this thing slowly but surely than to rush it. 900, we're almost there. The road to 1,000 is in full effect. Lorenzo Blackman and BB, of course. Now we all know BB is our Gator fan here. So I expect BB to say Percy. But other than that, we'll see. And then Antonio Dupree says Santana Moss, get out of here. I agree wholeheartedly there. All right. So here's the deal. Fred Taylor is a Gator. Cam Newton's a Gator / Auburn, but we all know Cam was originally a Gator. I mean, I get it. They're going to put on for their guy. They're putting on for their guy. And I'm not even mad at Cam so much as I'm mad at Fred. Fred was acting like Percy did so much more than Warwick did. Percy returned kicks. Chad Johnson had to correct him real quick. So did P-Dub. Percy did this. So did P-Dub. Only thing Peter didn't do that Percy did, and I can say this, Percy didn't do some things that Dub did. They did not line Dub in the backfield up as a traditional running back. That's fair. That's fair. That's the only thing that you could really say. He didn't have to play running back. They use Percy as a running back and as a wide receiver. Got it. But I don't recall Percy Harvin throwing any passes like Peter Warwick would throw either. So let's just say that evens out. It comes down to two categories for me. You've got the numbers and then the eye test. And in my opinion, Peter Warwick wins in both. When you look at the numbers of their careers, Percy Harvin has, I think, 70 some odd more yards total than Peter Warwick, but he has like 76 to 80 more touches than Peter Warwick. Oh, and by the way, he has 4 less career touchdowns than Peter Warwick. Now, Percy played 3 years. Peter played 4 years. However, it's not like Peter Warwick was starting from his freshman year all the way up. I strictly look at the touches. If you touch the ball 76 more times than the next player, and you only have 70 more yards and 4 less touchdowns, I would say that the latter player was way more effective than you in less amount of touches. I'm telling you right now, if you gave Peter Warwick 76 more touches than Percy Harvin, the numbers wouldn't even be comparable. The fact that they're even comparable while Percy has more touches, that already seals the debate for me. Then if you just go to the eye test, if you just go to watching the highlights and who was better, I mean, is it even a question? The only eye test that even comes close to Warwick is Reggie Bush. And I don't think Reggie Bush is even on Peter Warwick's level, because Reggie Bush didn't show up in big games. But this ain't about Reggie Bush. And Fred Taylor went on to say, well, without Percy Harvin, there's no Tim Tebow. That's fair. I'm not a huge Tim Tebow guy. I think Tim was perfect for what Urban wanted to do, but man, that team had a lot of talent around Tim Tebow. Most national championship caliber teams have that. A lot of talent around good players. So I won't even debate that. I'll agree. But we're not going to sit here and look. I like Chris Winkie, Heisman winner. I mean, so was Tebow. But don't tell me Chris Winkie wasn't just throwing that thing up to P-Dub and the rest was history. Let's not pretend like Peter Warwick wasn't making Chris Winkie look 10 times better than what he was. And I believe that wholeheartedly. So if you can sit here and say that Percy made Tebow, when Tebow did a lot more with his legs than Chris Winkie ever thought about doing, if you can sit here and say that Percy made Tebow, which is a fair argument if we want to take that route, fair argument, then there's no way you can't say the same thing about Peter Warwick. There's no way you can't say the same thing about Peter Warwick. No way. We all know Peter Warwick. Percy was never in the conversation for Heisman. Anybody want to correct me if I'm wrong there? Percy Harvin was never even in the conversation for Heisman. That's because we all know Tim Tebow. To put a little light on that, we do know that Tim Tebow was the media darling. He was the church boy. I got it. We know. So from a voting perspective, Tim Tebow was going to get majority of those votes. I do think Percy Harvin was the most talented player on that offense. But we had a wide receiver win the Heisman this year. The fact is, it should have been Peter Warrick in 99 that won that Heisman. Everybody knows that Peter Warrick was the most electric and the best college football player in his time. And you hear two NFL wide receivers. One's a Hall of well, he's not in the Hall of Fame yet, but I think Chad Johnson will eventually get into the Hall of Fame. He's not obviously not a first ballot, but I think he'll eventually sneak in there. But he's the Hall of Fame caliber. So you got a Hall of Fame caliber wide receiver telling you that Peter Warrick was the best college player he's ever seen. I've been saying it since I started this channel. There's a reason why that guy is above me right now behind my shoulder. There's a reason why that picture stays there. And I mention him every single episode pretty much. Look, Peter Warrick was the reason. Look, I discovered P-Dub before. I mean, I told the story about how I became a Florida State fan, about how I saw, to this day, I still believe it was the Gators and the Seminoles. I'm not too sure who the other team was. But I remember the first time I saw Florida State on TV, I believe it was the Gators, and they were playing. And I didn't know anything about, I knew more about NFL. Mainly, I just knew that my family liked the Cowboys. I didn't care for the Cowboys, but everybody, this is the 90s, so everybody loved the Cowboys back then. So I knew who the Cowboys were, I knew who the 49ers were, and I knew teams like that. I wasn't keen on college football yet. And I saw that garnet and gold, and I was like, man, that team looks cool. And then I heard the war chant, and the rest was history. But I didn't start loving the Seminoles until I watched number 9 do the things that he did on the football field. I didn't start loving the Seminoles until that dude was putting 200 plus yards up on Clemson, destroying Virginia Tech in the national championship game. Oh, and the Gators know all too well about him as well. That dude made me fall in love with the Seminoles. I had never seen nothing like him on a football field before. And since to this day, I still tell you, to this day, the only thing that is even comparable is Reggie Bush. The difference is Reggie Bush did it against Fresno State, and Peter Warrick did it against Miami, Florida, Virginia Tech, and Clemson. Now, Clemson wasn't Clemson back then, but still, they're better than Fresno State. So I don't even know, I get it. Again, Fred Taylor, man, I get it. He's a Gator, so he's got to put on. But believe it or not, you got Gators on Twitter, you got them on the social media, and they're gonna legit try to argue this point with you. They're gonna legit try to argue this. It's really not comparable. 37 people, man, hit the like button. It's not an argument. It's not an argument. I don't know. What did Percy do better than Peter Warrick? Anybody want to tell me? I agree. Straight line speed. Harvin had the edge there. And that's about it. That's about it. Straight line speed, I will give Percy Harvin the edge. Other than that, nothing. Other than that, nothing. Let's go to the comments and see what everybody's talking about in the comment section. We'll start. Let's see here. We'll start here at Light 'em Up, says Fred on one. Antonio Dupree says they dumb. What a joke. Tyrant says nonsense. Percy can't hold P-Dub jockstrap. Stop the disrespect. He's saying Harvin was a receiver, just like P-Dub, when there's no comparison. Right. Percy, now anybody can definitely correct me here. Percy did most of his damage lining up in the backfield with Jeff Demps, and they would use that dual speed of Jeff Demps and Percy Harvin with Tebow on the read options. That's where Percy did most of his damage. He played primarily, he was more of a wide receiver in the pros, but in college, he was really used more as a running back than a receiver. Light him up says, don't ever disrespect the GOAT. Raymond James, what's going on? New King still wants to talk about this Santana Moss crap. I don't know what he's on. Terrence says Hunter should be number one. I agree. They're still tripping with Travis Hunter. Why he's not number one? But at least he's number three. At least he's the number one corner now. Because that dude out of California wasn't it. Let me catch up on the Sergeant. This is a Georgia fan, guys. If you guys don't know Sergeant AR-10. Sergeant AR-10 says Peter Warrick, and it's not even close. Now, Sergeant AR-10's a little biased too, because he's a Georgia fan, so he hates the Gators just as much as we do. But he's speaking all facts. Hurricane T2Y is in the building. T2Y says Devin Hester. As a returner, absolutely, Devin Hester is all-time, probably the best returner of all time. I don't even know who you could argue, maybe Dion. But Devin Hester is the best returner of all time. But Devin Hester wasn't the playmaker, the wide receiver, it's the all-around football player over Peter Warrick. They tried to equate P-Dub at wide receiver with Harvin at wide receiver when there's no comparison. I think I read that one already. P-Dub was the top QB in high school. P-Dub in the Wildcats. 76 more touches equals 8 to 10 more TDs. That's what I'm saying, Terrence. If I give Peter Warrick 76 more touches than Percy Harvin, Peter Warrick already has 4 more TDs than Percy Harvin with 76 less touches. The numbers get blown out of proportion. And again, we're not even in the same conversation then. Mike 72, what's going on? If Peter Warrick played an Urban Meyer spread system, Warrick would act a fool. Reggie Bush, that's my favorite college football running back to watch. Warrick averaged 20 yards per catch. P-Dub was the Heisman winner. Ask Ron Dane. Speaking the truth, that was Peter Warrick Heisman that year. Ron Dane said it at the podium because everybody knows who the best player in college football was. Peter Warrick averaged 20 yards a catch and 20 yards per punt return. I'm glad everybody's coming in here speaking the gospel tonight because I really thought I'd have some more blasphemers out there, but it seems like we're all on one accord. I don't know where this Percy Harvin nonsense started. Well, we know where it started. It started with damn Cam Newton and Fred Taylor, 2 Gators. P-Dub destroyed some of the best defensive backs in the country, all the Florida schools to USC. Percy Harvin knows himself he's not better than P-Dub. And there we go, man. Everybody's pretty much just saying the same stuff. P-Dub play QB to Percy. That's what I said. I said, okay, if you want to say, well, Peter Warrick didn't play running back, well, Peter Warrick could play quarterback. Could Percy Harvin do that? No. So let's just scratch those 2 things out. Polk, do you think Dalvin Cook is better than Reggie Bush? Ooh. I'll get back to that question, No Squad. We're gonna close up the Peter Warrick Percy Harvin debate, and then I like that question. I'll answer that here in a second. I've been a Seminole since kindergarten, and I've never seen anybody like him. Man, I would take Sammy Watkins over Percy Harvin, and I hate. Sammy was a problem in college too, man. Sammy was definitely a problem. Ask Bud Foster, who's better. I take Sammy Watkins at Clemson. Antonio Dupree says the same thing. But No Squad asks, do I think Dalvin Cook is better than Reggie Bush? This is gonna, if I say Dalvin over Reggie, I'm gonna be looked at as biased, Florida State fan, just talking Florida State nonsense. And I get it. But here's what when I answer that question, I'm gonna answer that question like this. with the game on the line, USC needed, what was it, a yard to continue the drive against Texas and put the game away. And with the game on the line, they sat Reggie Bush on the bench and put in Lindell White. Now, I'm gonna just say, I would put my entire paycheck on the line. There's no way in hell you put Dalvin Cook on the bench. Even if you're not gonna give Dalvin Cook the ball, you're gonna at least let the defense account for him. You're gonna at least make the linebacker watch him, make the ends contain the outside. There's no way in hell Dalvin Cook's on the bench in a game-winning type or game-sealing type situation. But Reggie Bush was. So you can take out, you can do all the highlights you want, and you can tell me Reggie is da 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 da. When the game was on the line, Reggie Bush was on the bench. Dalvin Cook would not be. That's a fact, and I'll close that right there. We play in Miami in basketball now. Well, that should be an easy blowout. Pat, my man, what's going on? Pat says T2I is high. Well, I mean, to T2I's credit, he says he's a Reggie fan. Got it. But yeah, you just don't do it. You don't do it. Not even close or worth wasting the energy. No way in the hell Dalvin is sitting. I'll take Jalen Darden from North Texas over Percy. If you haven't watched that kid's highlights, please do. T2I chalks it up to a coach's mistake. Okay. I mean, Pete Carroll, national champion, Super Bowl winning champion. So it's not like Pete Carroll's a scrub coach. I just know Dalvin's not on the bench, period, point blank. As a running back, without question, Cook is better. I always felt Reggie Bush should have been a wide or slot receiver or a scat back. Terrence says to counter that Reggie being on the bench thing, Pete Carroll was the coach, and he's made questions. Now, he didn't make the one question decision. I mean, in hindsight, we can definitely go back, especially with the Super Bowl decision, not giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch on the 1 yard line was definitely a dumb call. So, yeah, you got a point there. I just don't. I never thought it was an issue that they were going to let Lindell White run for the first down. I mean, Lindell White was 230. He was the big bruiser back. Never thought that was an issue, but at least line Reggie Bush up. You at least put him on the field. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying. Reggie Bush was super fun to watch. But and then you just take the teams. Just take USC, their offensive line, and everything around them, and compare that to what Dalvin Cook was working with at Florida State. Before we realized the state that Florida State was in, the offensive line, Dalvin was running, he carried an entire team for 2? I won't say 3 years because he had Jameis Winston his first year. He carried the program for 2 years. Carried the program for 2 years though. Miami fans need to worry about their QB is going to be. Garcia's getting. I heard about some stuff with Garcia, but we're definitely not going to make this. We're definitely not going to make this a Miami thing. But I did make that comparison, Tyler. I'm glad you brought it up. When I said I was getting Malik Henry vibes from Garcia, I brought that up, and people told me I was crazy. We're not going to make this that kind of a. We're not going to make this that kind of thing. And Cook did more with less. So absolutely. So again, I wasn't even going to do a show this weekend. And by the comment section, I don't even know how long we're going to be on tonight because everybody's pretty much in agreement, man. It's not even a debate. Percy Harvin versus Peter Warrick isn't a debate. Now let's throw Reggie Bush, because that was also a conversation piece on Twitter. I saw people throwing Reggie Bush into the conversation and basically saying he was the only thing that compared to Peter Warrick. I think play style wise, or as far as exciting to watch, I don't think Reggie Bush was better than Dalvin. But I'll say this: those USC teams were fun to watch because of Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush was a damn exciting player to watch. How does he compare against Peter Wark? His highlight tape compares better than Percy does. His highlight tape compares better than Percy Harvin. Now, I think Percy Harvin's a better football player than Reggie Bush. That's just me. But his highlight tape, if you put the highlight tapes next to each other, you'd be like, okay, this Reggie Bush kid, he's got a lot of Peter Wark in him. It's a lot of, dead leg. The dead leg. Reggie's wasn't Peter Wark's level, but start and stop and go, agility. Reggie had all of that too. Reggie was fun to watch. Raymond says, all right, you got to run and support the basketball team. All right, man. Go watch them boys whoop up on. But the Miami basketball team ain't even a good team, so I expect that to be a. Yeah, our team does have a habit though of playing down the competition. So, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna score watch in the background. We do have a habit of playing down the competition when you start talking about. That's not what I want. Florida State basketball. Boom, 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 boom. Where is it? There we go. Game hasn't started yet. All right. So we got the basketball. I'm gonna watch the basketball game in the back. Well, I'm watching it, but I'm gonna follow the score. Do you think either Cam or Dalvin will get a Super Bowl? And when it comes to running backs, man, that's I can't. It's running backs. Like Barry Sanders doesn't have a Super Bowl. Yeah, in my opinion, Barry Sanders is the best running back of all time. So, so tough to say. I think Cam's in a better situation, a better position with a great defense. He's got Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey on one side. I think they just got Matt Stafford on the other side to quarterback. So I would say Cam has the best shot right now. I think that Viking team needs to figure some things out. It's just hard to tell when you talking about running backs. Reggie Bush had 2 1,000-yard season with my sorry-ass Dolphins, so that shows his level of talent. I think he ran for like a 1,000-yard season with the Lions too, if I'm not mistaken. Peter should have had more film. I can't compare them. Peter has whole Heisman's worth of film, bro. What are we talking about? Are you watching college or the pros? He blew his knee in the pros, so he didn't do the things that he was doing in college. But he's got plenty of film to watch in college. If you want to watch Peter Wark film, just go watch him against Virginia Tech. YouTube Peter Wark versus Clemson. You can watch that game. That'll give you all the film you need. Marshall Faulk, LaDainian Tomlinson, both were more exciting to watch than Reggie Bush. LT was a beast at TCU, man. I agree with you there. Marshall Faulk was nasty. Well, Marshall Faulk went San Diego State, if I'm not mistaken. Both were very dynamic college running backs. Don't disagree with you there, man. Don't disagree with you there. Barry Sanders would have a Super Bowl if he would have teamed up with Dan Marino. If Barry would have went to any team other than the Lions, he may have got him one. He literally carried that franchise, and he retired early. Cam has surprised me with how slow he looks in the pros. Anytime he breaks away, he's getting caught from behind. Yeah, Cam's a physical specimen. I don't know, I don't know if he's. Again, I just think he's in the best position to win them one as far as team goes. He really played well in the playoffs. He pretty much was the offense in the playoffs. So they can get some stuff around him, man. I think Cam's probably in the best position offensively, defensively. the Rams have a more complete team than the Vikings. But hit the like button, people. So, I mean, that's it. That's the debate that I just wanted to get out there. I had to address it because it literally baffled my mind that it was even a debate. Peter Warrick hasn't played in what, 20 years? Percy, how long ago was that for Percy? 9, 10, 11 years, 11, 12 years ago, somewhere around there, right? And yet this debate came up recently, and I don't, this is when I watched that clip. Again, I just really played the video with a few pictures, but when I watched that clip, I believe Brandon Marshall and Chad Johnson in their heart believe Peter Warrick's the greatest player of all time. I believe Cam Newton had a reaction where I think Cam Newton probably believes that Percy Harvin is that guy. When I watch it, I don't think Fred Taylor thinks Percy's really. Fred Taylor's only saying that because of the Gator lineage. I don't think Fred Taylor really believes that Percy Harvin's better than Peter Warrick. I think he's saying that to put a Gator in the conversation. I do not think Fred Taylor really believes that. That's kind of how I felt when I watched that video. I felt like this man's just saying things just to say things. Before Dalvin, Chris Thompson was a bad boy. And he broke his back. Spinal. Yeah, Chris Thompson was a bad boy. And then he had back injuries, man, that derailed him. And then he went on to play in the NFL for a solid amount of years. It's not really a every down back, but you use him in the pass game and stuff like that. But Chris Thompson was that guy. Peter Warrick, most elusive, dynamic player to ever step foot on a college football field. Did you see the footage of Hunter? I saw different clips of it. If there's any other footage, I haven't seen it, but I saw different clips of him pretty much, being the best player on the field, being at playing wide receiver. Every clip I saw of him was at wide receiver. And I said it before and I say it again, man. I don't know why the dude, they got the quarterback as the number one overall prospect. Speaking of him, he's no longer the perfect prospect. They dropped him a little bit as his overall grading. I think he went from a perfect 1.0. I think he's a 98 now. Quinn Ewers, Ohio State commit quarterback. Remember, we watched him. So he's the number one guy. I think there's a D tackle ahead of Travis Hunter, and then it's Travis Hunter as the third. But again, when you look at those two guys ahead of him, I guess the scouters love those two guys. But show me a player in the country who, when he steps on the field, he's the best offensive player and best defensive player. Because those two guys ahead of him aren't it. One's a true D tackle, one's a damn quarterback who don't play any other position. When Travis Hunter gets on the field, he's the only player in the entire country that can legit say, on every field he steps on, he's going to be the best the best offensive player and the best defensive player. Peter's highlights look like Blitz 2000. I forgot. Who did Peter? It was the Bengals. Yep, everybody pretty much told you the Bengals. Riley Cooper is the greatest racist wide receiver of all time. Chris Thompson, he did play well in the NFL. Thompson helped me with fantasy football a couple years ago. How do we put Hunter on both sides? What's the plan? I still don't know what's the plan. But again, I keep saying it's a great problem to have. A lot of people from the 7-on-7, and I would like people to take the 7-on-7 with a grain of salt. I'm not a real big fan of 7-on-7s because it's not real football. It's not real football. But it's a good play. It is a good place for these guys to show their athletic ability, ball skills, and things of that nature. But people are taking this 7-on-7 stuff and saying they just need to primarily play Hunter at receiver. He's the best wide receiver in the country. And he might be. I just think we kind of might want to slow our rolls a little bit. Understand that there's still real football to be played with pads and helmets and, not just throwing the ball 50 times. I still, when I watch him, I think his highest potential is at DB. I think you got a guy who can be a very good wide receiver to great to a guy that, probably the best DB we've had at Florida State, definitely since Jalen. And I mean, Jalen was a number 4 overall pick in the draft. I think Hunter could be in that same mold. Giuseppe says, what a Polk, Anton Smith, Chris Thompson are underrated great FSU backs. Anton Smith played a solid amount in the NFL as well. I really liked Antoine Smith. Didn't quite have the collegiate career he should have had. Antoine Smith was dope. I mean, FSU's had running backs throughout the years. Look at Lorenzo Booker, Leon Washington. I mean, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something that's going to be super controversial right now. And a lot of this had to do with just the situation that Florida State was in at the time when we had Leon Washington and Lorenzo Booker. I want you to go watch Lorenzo Booker. He's out of California too, if I'm not mistaken. Built very similar to Reggie Bush. I think Lorenzo Booker was like maybe 6'2" or something like that. Maybe he wasn't that tall. I know Reggie Bush was like 6 foot or 6'1", somewhere around there. My point is, they're two pretty tall running backs. I want you to go watch some of Lorenzo Booker's highlights. Put him next to Reggie Bush. Not saying he was a better player than Reggie Bush. They're very similar. And I'm telling you right now, if Booker had been in a better situation, Booker could have been Reggie Bush. Now that might be controversial, but Booker had that move, that stop and start, that wiggle, just like Reggie Bush. Dennis, what's going on? Hunter is without a doubt the best corner in the country, and you could easily say he's the best wide receiver in the country. We can use my homeboy Travis J as a gadget player once in a while. They're going to use him. Compare his wide receiver footage with anyone in the nation. Better than Derwin. I'm not saying he's better than Derwin. Derwin's, when I say DB, I really mean corner. I don't think it's too early for me to say that he'll be better than Derwin. But the biggest knock on Derwin, and I say it too, is just injuries. Derwin can't stay healthy. We all know the kind of player that Derwin James is when he's on the field. Derwin hasn't been healthy two straight years in the NFL. Derwin only played his rookie year, if I'm not mistaken. So 2 of his 3 years in the NFL, he's been hurt. His college career, he only played. He was hurt like his last 2 years in college, wasn't he? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong there. Derwin, man, Derwin's a freak physically, but he can't stay healthy. Ray Fitty. CJ, man, what's up? Ain't seen you in a minute, CJ. Where you been at? Where them? CJ, need to get them open mic nights back popping, man. Panama, I'm talking about some other back. Running back, Booker was 6 feet. I'm taking Percy. Whoever made this 19-minute highlight got my vote. Of course, you would take Percy. You're the only person in the entire chat who would take Percy Harvin over Peter Warwick. Of course, the Florida State troll is going to take Percy Harvin. Can you imagine Greg Jones, Leon Washington, Lorenzo Booker, and Jimbo's backfield? Man, that's James Wilder, Devontae Freeman, and Carlos Williams all over again. Let me see. I'll take Wilder is Greg Jones, Leon Washington is Devontae Freeman, or vice versa. And now Carlos isn't really Lorenzo Booker, but you get the mix. That's pretty much what that is. Cam McDonald has been putting on tons of practice footage. Milton's arm is looking really good. Warwick Dunn is my favorite. No, that's the Chargers' fault. They medical team garbage. Best college and NFL returner is Devin Hester. I won't deny that, CJ. We ain't talking about that, though. You see who here? Look at Jurgens in the building. Warwick Dunn is the GOAT. Warwick Dunn's good, but, he's not Dalvin Cook. Leon Washington was legit in the NFL too. Made several Pro Bowls with multiple teams. Yeah, Leon Washington was a very underrated kick returner. One of the all-time kick returners, if you look at Leon Washington. Absolutely. The dead leg alone made P-Dub the GOAT, and don't forget Warwick Dunn. What's up? POLK, Concrete Hard No. Peter Warwick is probably a top 10 of the greatest college football players ever. For me, he's top. But again, I'm biased, so I understand that. But top 10, easily. Top 10 easily by all non-biased people. Top 10 is fine. I'm fine with that. For me, he's the GOAT. For Chad Johnson, he's the GOAT. For Brandon Marshall, he's the GOAT. And a list of other people. And then Terrence says Los was nasty. Is the top college football player, including QBs. Whatever list you want to put on there, my man. Whoever you want to put on there. I'm just going off of what Chad Johnson, Cam Newton, Fred Taylor, and Brandon Marshall were talking about. At the end of the day, whoever you want to put on there. I would assume maybe they weren't talking QBs. And for me, even talking QBs, it's still Peter Ward. For me, but my opinion don't mean nothing because the man's on my wall. So for me, it is what it is. Norvale Central in the building. Thank you for stopping by. What do you think about the white helmets? Personally, this might not be a popular opinion. I hate them. I don't like them. I barely like these helmets. I don't know how you would classify these. I don't know if these are considered like the half garnet, half black helmets. I barely like these ones. I'm okay with all black. But me personally, I believe the FSU helmet is probably the one helmet in all of college football, man. It doesn't need to change. It doesn't need to change. That's just my opinion. We can do different things with the uniforms if we want to. Stop touching the helmet. Stop touching our helmet. This is the most I'm not going to say the most iconic one because there's some pretty good helmets in college football. I mean, the Notre Dame helmet is fairly iconic. The Michigan helmet is pretty iconic. But this is one of the most notable and iconic helmets in all of college football. And I just wish they'd stop touching it. I barely like this one. I barely like it. With the right uniform combinations, I kind of like this one, but barely. I don't like the whites. That's just me personally. They need to stop touching stop touching the helmet. But maybe I'm just too of a traditionalist. And I'm pretty sure recruits and the kids like it, and that's what matters. The kids are gonna like it. They're gonna think it looks cool, and stuff like that. But me personally, stop touching the helmet, man. Okay, fellas, some of y'all got to pump your brakes on Hester as the best returner. Did y'all forget prime time? That, to me, that's the only person that I would debate up against Devin Hester. Devin Hester as the best returner of all time is a legit thing. Legit thing. Like, if you say Devin Hester is the best returner of all time, pros or college, it's hard for me to argue. And the only name I could even think about arguing would be prime time. That's the only name I could think about arguing. Leon Washington coaching with the Jets now. I saw that. Love P-Dub, but Dion was better. Also expect more to pop for us on March. In my lifetime, give me Cam. I've said that before, Jurgen. To me, Cam Newton is probably the best college quarterback I've seen. I've said that. Cam Newton is probably the best college quarterback I've seen. I mean, you're talking about a JUCO national champion. Then he takes an Auburn team that, let's be honest, that Auburn team doesn't have Cam Newton. That's probably a 3 to 4 loss win team. And he beat Alabama and won a national championship with that team. The Auburn team was not overly talented at all. The Auburn team had Sammy Coates at wide receiver, Nick Farley on the defensive side. And they did have Dyson, who was a legit running back before he got into all that trouble. But that team did not have a lot of talent. I think probably if you compare that Auburn national championship team talent-wise compared to some of the other ones, it probably ranks close to the bottom, if not on the bottom. And Cam took that team and ran with it. So absolutely on Cam Newton. Space Ghost says P-Dub. LeBron said P-Dub is the reason he wore number 9. I told y'all on this channel before, LeBron grew up a Seminole fan. He reps Ohio State now. It's a PR move. He's from Ohio. So for him, when you start talking about PR and all that stuff that comes, you know, everybody knows LeBron's very conscious about his image, which he should be. He goes out of his way not to say anything negative about the state of Ohio and supports all those teams. But he didn't grow up a Buckeye fan. He didn't grow up a Browns fan. He didn't grow up a Cavalier fan. The man grew up liking the Cowboys, the Yankees, and the damn Seminoles. Oh, the teams that ran the 90s. So it's not a surprise there. I told you, man, LeBron grew up a Seminole fan. Are the white helmets official? I don't know if they're official or not. I just don't like them. I'll never forget P-Dub shook the whole Florida Gators defense in the swamp. Best elusive play I've seen in my college game. I actually like the white helmets, but the gold will always be the best. I want to see the white helmets. I could probably find a picture of them. Give me a minute. I like the white ones better than the maroon and black ones. The U on the side of your helmet, iconic. Miami has a good helmet, no doubt. But we ain't talking about Miami. Primetime called Devin Hester the best returner ever, though. I think Devin Hester is the best returner ever. The unconquered all-black jersey was fire. My brother said y'all never win in them. I think we wore those against Duke this year. I think we wore the all-black ones against Duke. I think we don't wear them very often. I think we wore them against Duke this year and won in them. Dante Hall was real dope. Shout out to Primetime for putting Jackson State on the map with one game. No doubt. In a lot of different ways. I think Primetime has been robbed there twice since he's been at Jackson State. He said he had his car. His truck was broken into and they stole the stereo. And then he came out after the game and said I think they ended up getting his stuff back, but somebody stole the stuff out of his locker in the locker room after the game. The man's been robbed twice as the head coach of Jackson State. I don't think Deion's going to be there long personally, but shout out to him for making waves. Well, the conversation stemmed from the talking about team being recognized as the best college player ever because the accolades, but they said Percy was really the best ever. The best to do what? Nothing. FSU was killing Miami right now. I expect that. Again, it's just basketball. Miami's nothing to pay attention to. As a matter of fact, right now it's 25-8. Florida State is demolishing the Miami Hurricanes, 25-8 in basketball. And there wouldn't be a Tebow without him, and then you showed the clip of the rest. So I agreed with that point. I don't know if I would say there wouldn't be a Tebow at all, but Percy Harvin made that offense. Percy Harvin made Tim Tebow have the numbers that he had, especially through the air. I mean, when you know. But again, if Percy Harvin made Tim Tebow, which is fair, I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to say it's wrong. Then how did Peter Warwick help Chris Winkie win a Heisman? Did Peter Warwick not make Chris Winkie? Travis Hunter gonna play both sides at State too. Deion was a good punt returner. P-Dub would have won the Heisman if he didn't go on a shopping spree. Harvin, I don't think, was even in overall football players. Devin Hester is not Peter Warwick. So that conversation definitely stops there. If we want to talk about the return game, okay. After that, Devin Hester or Percy Harvin, they just weren't better all around football players than Peter Warwick. And yeah, I said it before, William. Harvin was never even in a conversation for Heisman. Now, again, that has a lot to do with the fact that Tim Tebow was the media darling and going to the Philippines and circumcising kids on his mission or whatever. I remember they talked not too long ago it might have been 5, 6, 7 years ago. There was a real conversation. Has Tim Tebow's Christianity hurt him in the NFL and kept him from playing in the they tried to blame the fact that he was this devout Christian is to reason why the NFL didn't want him. And I was like, are they freaking ridiculous? It's because he can't play that they didn't want him in the NFL. It had nothing to do with his religion, religious beliefs. Because when he was in college, he was the second coming of Jesus when he was in college. It's funny how that entire team was full of convicts, and then they had the Messiah on the team. Like, isn't it crazy how that Florida team was? Like, while Tim Tebow was in the Philippines doing circumcisions, Aaron Hester was in Connecticut catching bodies. Aaron Hester was in Connecticut catching bodies. Like, man, crazy. Kane say we are good in baseball, though. Gonzaga is still killing it. I can't wait for us to match up with some of these teams around the country. Talking about Florida State basketball. Lonnie Pryor should have had a chance to play running. Dude was a beast coming out of Lonnie Pryor. They moved him to fullback. And at that time, I mean, if you look at it, the backfield was too talented. I don't think Lonnie Pryor was going to break in. So I think the fullback move was the right move. All the sports commentators are acting like we did Prime wrong by not hiring him. They're saying that now because Jackson State put up 53 against whoever. I said this, and I'm going to say it again. I said it before a game was played. Jackson State should, off of talent alone, legitimately, Dion got D1 talent on that team. Not too many HBCUs are going to be able to say that. He should win a majority, if not all of his games, because he's just way more talented than most of the HBCUs. But to think that he would have came to Florida State and been able to do the same things, I think you're sadly mistaken. If Hunter wants to make big money, he'll stick to one side of the ball. They'll also push him in that direction. The league is about specialists. I agree, Jurgen. I agree with you. Gonzaga 22-0. So is Baylor. Tebow's Christianity is the only reason he got in the league. Absolutely. That's my point. But I know you remember those conversations, Jurgen, because I remember them. That was one that they tried to make an excuse that his Christianity, his religion, his preference, whatever, his devoutness, which is all fine and dandy. They legit tried to make that a reason why the NFL, what's the word I'm looking for? Same thing they did to Colin, but it was legit blackballed him out of the league. That was like legit conversation on the First Take shows and ESPN shows. Hold on, the chat jumped on me. Okay, there we go. Sergeant AR says Christianity is false. Everybody made excuses for Tim Tebow. T2Y says Peyton Manning ended his career. Lorenzo says exactly. Jurgen Henry, we need Hunter on defense more than offense. Hernandez was a G. Tebow doesn't win the Heisman without Percy. I don't disagree, William. I don't disagree. I said that. I think Percy Harvin made Tim Tebow. We're not going to sit and pretend like he didn't. Percy Harvin was the best player on that offense, but Peter Ward was the best player on offense, and we had a Heisman winning quarterback as well. Harvin could make Tebow, but we want to act like Dub didn't make 26-year-old Chris Winkie. Why didn't Tebow use the Christian influence to pull a person having off the coach he was beating up? That's a question we're going to have to ask Tebow. But, again, they just tried to use that for him as an excuse, and I never bought into it. I'm not a Knowles fan by any means. You're a secret Knowles fan. I mean, Terrence. Is Terrence still in the building? Terrence you're like a secret Knowles fan. We all know you really like Florida State. Me and Terrence know you really like Florida State. Speaking of these two, I'm going to say this. Speaking of these two, Jurgen Henry, who you guys see here in the chat, and Terrence Addison, who was talking earlier, hasn't talked in a minute. These two guys are going to be picking. Now, Jurgen is a Miami fan. Unfortunately, he's a Miami fan. He and Terrence is a Florida State fan. They're going to come. I'm going to play mediator, but they're going to come on the show. I'm not going to do anything. They're going to draft the all-time Miami Hurricanes versus the all-time Seminoles. They're going to do it live with you guys watching in the chat, giving your input, but they're going to pick them. I'm going to just mediate. And in case Terrence makes a mistake, I'm going to have to jump in there. But I'm going to just mediate, and we're going to see who wins that game between the all-time Seminoles and the all-time Canes. But back to what Jurgen's saying. I'm not a Knowles fan by any means, but I agree. He's a modern DB in terms of his skill set. You talking about Hunter? Jurgen? Jackson State in the fall should win 9 minimum. Easy. Lonnie Pryor is the poster child for being the team player. Would do another guy who was like that, William, was Giorgio Newberry. They moved Giorgio Newberry from defensive tackle to defensive end to tight. I think Giorgio Newberry in like his 4 years at Florida State played 4 different positions. If you guys remember who that is. Deion Sanders better be defensive coordinator. Deion Sanders would be a better defensive coordinator than Adam Fuller. I already told y'all, man, I'll take anything over Adam Fuller. My 2-year-old probably coach defense better than Adam Fuller. FSU is not a place where a guy starts coaching. Absolutely. You work your way up to FSU. Hiring Deion would have been a weak move and a gamble, to say the least. Huge gamble. So we gambled with Adam Fuller. Well, we gambled with Adam Fuller is a Mike Norvell hire, not a Florida State hire. Okay? When you hire a head coach, you hire who he brings along. So we didn't gamble with Adam Fuller. You can say we might have gambled with Mike Norvell. I mean, I've talked about this before. I have nothing against Mike Norvell, and I'm rooting for him because I root for any coach that coaches this team. But an article just recently came out that we're still paying Willie Taggart freaking $4 million a year, I think, until 2024 to not coach us. We're paying him $4 million a year to sit in Boca and be mediocre. Okay. So the knock to me was never necessarily on Norvell, but you were never supposed to fire Taggart and hire Norvell. That should never have been the fire. That's a mistake on the administration wholeheartedly. Now we have Norvell. He seems to have some momentum. Seems to be doing some positive things. At the end of the day, all that goes out the window if he don't win games on Saturdays. But as of right now, we're supporting Norvell, and we gotta, I believe he can right the ship. I don't know if he's gonna win a national championship, but I believe he can be the coach that gets us to the coach that gets us another national championship. Mike Norvell might be the coach that sets the foundation before they eventually move on, or maybe even he would move on. Who knows? The problem was always you were never supposed to fire Taggart for Norvell. That's a lateral move at best. That was always the issue. Tim Tebow beat my Dolphins and my Canes. Well, he beat everybody in college. He beat everybody in college just about, unless you was Ole Miss. Couldn't beat Ole Miss, though. What if Moss and P-Dub played out? You got the 2 greatest wide receivers in the history of the game on your same team. Would have been really crazy to watch. Prime is going to do great, but that was Edward Waters, who Jackson State beat. St. Augustine High School would beat Ed Waters. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you. Jurgen Henry says, go Noles. Malik Osborne is hurt. He got hurt? Like hurt, or he just score is 35-17, by the way. Jurgen win already. No, he didn't win already. That we gonna draft it, and Terrence gonna win that thing. Twisted ankle looks like. Okay, twisted ankle. Hopefully not. Hopefully he didn't break it or anything too crazy. Yeah, talking about Hunter, length, receiver, background, change of direction. Easy win for Canes. Mark Jean talking trash. Hell no, I'm taking Vince Young over Cam. What do you think about that, Jurgen? Vince Young over Cam. That's tough. But again, that Texas team had more talent than Cam's team. Again, that's where when I say Cam, I just look at what Cam had around him. Cam was that team. That Texas team had Earl Thomas on it and some other guys. Now I don't remember off the top who all that Texas team had on it, but I remember they had Earl Thomas and some other guys. Vince Young was goated. He was GOAT status too, man. But I take Cam over Vince Young. Adam Fuller has college coaching experience. Terrence with the eyes. Vince Young took down a USC dynasty. Cam Newton beat Nick Saban in Alabama in the midst of their run. So, I feel you, but I take Cam over Vince. Who was that guy Hurricane T2 I had on his live stream the other day? As an FSU fan, that guy had to be an undercover Canes fan. No idea, Panama. No idea. T2, you had another FSU fan on your channel? Who was it? Todd, what's going on? Of course I'm going to win. We going to play QB. Who going to play QB for UM? Cam, Vince Young. I agree, Terrence. Cam, Vince Young. Vince Young was nasty. But I think you just take Cam over Vince. He's bringing in blue chip recruits, so when the next coach come in, he'll have the talent to work with. I think he's talking about Kane's ass, talking about, man, do you see a QB will transfer next year? We're going to see how many QBs we sign this year, but I expect, and I think the staff thinks that they could expect at least one player to book it. Some type of attrition next year, I think. That Texas team had a loaded defense. Right. Thank you, Lorenzo. Cam all day. I made a mistake on that Tebow comment. I meant Percy Harvin, not person having. Vince Young was that dude. Would you take Cam over Vic? Vic was so much, especially in the college game. I mean, even in the NFL, as we all know. Oh man, I think like if you could put Michael Vick with Gus Malzahn, oh my God. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Cam Newton have Gus Malzahn as his offensive coordinator that year that he won the Heisman? Vic didn't get the Heisman. He didn't get the national championship, obviously, because he ran into the boys. But in a different era, a more recent era, Vic would have been something different, man. He already was something different. I mean, yeah, Gus was the OC, and that's what I'm saying, man. Give me Vic and Gus, and that's ridiculous. That's all what Gus Malzahn did with Nick Marshall. Vince Young was Nick Marshall times 20. Would have been ridiculous. I'll take Cam over Vic because of the results were better. And I don't think Frank Beamer and Virginia Tech really knew how to use Vic. Lamar Jackson was special in college. What he did to FSU made me glad we didn't play him. Lamar was nasty in college. Dude, USC had a loaded offense. No, they did, but we're comparing Vince Young. That's why we said Texas had a loaded defense. And I'm comparing Cam Newton, where nothing on that Auburn roster was loaded. Nothing. Again, I think they had a total of 4 college caliber players. I remember Nick Fairley pretty well. Again, I remember Sammy Coach pretty well. Of course, Cam Newton, and then Dye, the running back. Forget his first name, like Michael Dye or something like that. I forget his first name. And he was only there for a year before he got into all the off-field trouble and eventually was kicked out of Auburn. Michael Vick better than Cam. Look at Virginia Tech team that he took to national championship game against us. Kane say we wanted to come to FSU, but Jimbo wanted him to play receiver, not QB. Facts from No Squad. Jimbo's huge mistake there. Some people think Chubby might transfer. We'll see. Again, I think they're taking 2 quarterbacks anyway. If Chuba Purdy transfers, then he transfers. I'm not going to lose sleep over a transfer. I want guys who want to be here. I'm not accusing Chuba of not wanting to be here, but if he transfers, it just says what it is. The game, the position's up for him to win. Yeah, my rebuttal to the rumors that Purdy wants to transfer is either one of 2 things. He just doesn't want to be there anymore, homesick, or maybe something like that, or that's the only thing I can think of. Because as far as the job goes, the job's his for the taking next year. Not this year, but next year. If he's not the starting quarterback, it's his own fault. I was surprised when I saw Turnt on T2Y's show. I thought they hated each other. They're best friends now. They're back to being buddies, which is a good thing. They're back to being buddies. Cam was like 6'6", 250. Absolutely. Hamilton was the FSU fan. Yes, Cam had Gus. No Squad, wow, Lamar and Garnet and Gold, crazy. He was live on Facebook. I wouldn't say he was telling the truth. He was live on Facebook and being Dyer, Michael Dyer. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Michael Dyer. He was live on Facebook being a turncoat, but the truth is subjective. Lamar wanted FSU, but FSU did not want Lamar. I don't worry about transfers. If you don't see the field, then obviously you weren't good enough. There you go. There you go. Roll ankle 41-22. Talking about Osborne rolled his ankle, but it is 41-22 at the half. Is it the halftime yet? Nope. We're 3 minutes and 40 seconds away from the half. We had a shot at some good running backs. We could have had Adrian Peterson, Shady McCoy, and Dalvin Cook. AP or AD, I think he said he came down to USC in Texas. Or no, USC in Oklahoma. USC in Oklahoma. I don't know why I said Texas. How long did it take y'all to raise $100 million? The $100 million campaign started, correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler or somebody. I believe the $100 million campaign started when Taggart took the job. I could be wrong there. I think the $100 million campaign started in 2017 or 2018. So it took about 2-3 years, 2017 or 2018, something like that. But that's all booster revenue. That's all from the boosters. It has nothing to do with that $100 million is separate from the actual revenue of the team. But I think it was after Taggart got the job when they started that campaign for that. These refs are really trying to help these candy canes right now. I mean, it's 41-22. I don't know how much they could really be helping them. The wideouts and the biggest question marks on the offense. Yeah, I would think wide receiver is. I mean, quarterback's still a huge question. We think we got our guy. But that's the guy that hasn't played football in 2 years. That's a guy who hasn't played football in 2 years. So I'm gonna have faith that Milton can get the job done. But I would say wide receiver is probably the biggest question mark going in for the offense, on the offensive side of the ball. Did you see that Dion got robbed? Yep, I talked about that. I talked about how he's been robbed twice already in his tenure. I talked about that. Somebody broke into his vehicle, and then after the game. Again, I don't think he's not. I don't think he's going to be at Jackson State long. I don't think he's going to be there long. 1-2 years max. It would not surprise me if he left after this year. It would not shock me if a team looked at what he does on the field this year and a group of 5 school. I still don't think a Power 5 school takes a gamble on Dion. But a San Diego State, I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying they're looking for a head coach, but a team like that. Now, if I'm Deion, he probably wants to stay in the South. So let me think of some Southern schools. Hell, I don't know how much longer Frost is going to be at USF. That would be an interesting mix. Deion at USF, something like that. I can see a team taking a gamble on him even after 1 year. After Taggart 2018, yeah, that's when the stuff started. The $100 million campaign started with the Willie Taggart, and he donated $1 million of his own money. And we're still paying him $4 million, so that $1 million he ain't getting back, damn it. But I do remember Taggart donated $1 million of his own salary for that. The campaign started as a 5-year goal in 2018, and we reached it in less than half. There you go. Wayne knows what he's talking about. Some G5 will pick him up. Fuller's defense won't get it down. Primetime better not be there long. He's going to be in debt soon. I don't think he's going to be there long, man. Deion was smart. Deion was smart when he took that job. Deion was smart. I think he realized Mississippi, HBCU, a lot of things just would line up correctly for Deion in that. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be there very long. Turns out Willie didn't actually give $1 million. He was going to pay it in increments and stop paying pretty quickly. So there you go. There's some insight on the Willie Taggart donating his $1 million. I still wish he would have gave it because, again, we're paying him $4 million a year. Can't blame him for not donating it now, right? 45-24, FSU is up on Miami. 2 minutes and 22 seconds left in the half. Y'all should already know Deion was only in it at Jackson State for a couple years top. He'll be at the G5 school in 23. I think he might be there next year, Wayne. What channel? I'm not sure what channel it's on. Probably the ACC network, if I had to guess. Bro, Notre Dame trying to mess up college football game. Kane Zay with some information. So it's not just Notre Dame. All of the military academies, Notre Dame. There's actually a whole list of schools that are not participating in the new NCAA football game. To be fair, I don't play as any of the military academies or Notre Dame, so I could care less. But I think South Carolina was on that list. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can find that list. List. Let me see if I can find it. Not participating in NCAA game. Man, there's a whole list of it, and I can't find it right now. Why would you not participate? It's a free paycheck. I don't know if they're not participating because of. It might have a lot to do with some of these state rules and regulations. Because remember, the NCAA does not let players get paid for their likeness. But with California, Florida, and I believe Georgia, Florida's law is going to get passed here in June or July, if I'm not mistaken. I think California's law might already be in effect. And I think Georgia's is coming either this year or later this year or next year. They are going to allow players to get paid for their likeness. The NCAA still has not, they still haven't passed the rule on what they're going to do about that, how they're going to do that. I don't know if the state of Indiana is even letting them do it. That might be one of the reasons why South Carolina. I don't know how the state of South Carolina is working. I know the military academies. That doesn't surprise me with them. It could be a state thing. It could really be a state thing when you start talking about why some of the schools won't participate in the game. Wayne says NBC pays Notre Dame players already. They're all waiting on the wording of this new NIL policy. Getting paid for likeness is about to be passed by the NCAA, so they're waiting. Yeah, we're going to see what the NCAA rules on that. Am I the only one who thinks the new football games are going to be bad? Well, it's EA. It's EA, so. But I'm going to get it. And if it's bad, it's just bad. But you're right. The Madden and the FIFAs have been ruined. John Shields. We don't really care about basketball. We focus on football and baseball. You focus on baseball. Now all of a sudden you're focused on baseball because Miami's got a supposedly good baseball team this year. Now all of a sudden you've never talked about baseball before, John. Now all of a sudden you want to talk baseball. And you don't want to talk basketball because you're losing by 21 points in the first half. FSU's done scored 50. So we're on pace to score 100 points, which is really unheard of in the college game. Not too many teams are scoring 100 points in college. We're on pace to score 100 points on Miami. Y'all only have 28, and that's why you don't care about basketball. Got it. Can't wait for the game on PS5. I just play NCAA. I play it too. How has the NCAA not acted? This just blows my mind. They're sitting around they talked about that on a recent podcast I listened to. I forget who was talking about it. I forget the podcast. But yeah, the NC again, I think you've mentioned it before, Tyler. I've mentioned it before. I think we're 3, 4, 5 years max. It would not shock me if the Power 5 washes their hands with the NCAA and does their own thing, forms their own whatever, and just breaks off. Because the NCAA is routinely behind the 8 ball when making decisions regarding these schools. They still haven't decided on the scholarship situation, which I've talked about. I've talked about this a lot. There's a bad situation right now in college football, and that's the transfer portal and the amount of scholarships that are available for these kids. With the NCAA pulling all restrictions on kids transferring, and I'm just going to throw random numbers out there. So these numbers aren't accurate, but it's to give you guys like a mental picture of what's going on. There's 400 kids in the transfer portal right now and 200 scholarships available. And a lot of schools are reporting these issues. Some of these schools aren't letting these kids come back on scholarship because they've already filled other scholarships. There's a huge problem, and the NCAA has yet to address it. There's been rumors of, will they not count the grad? So one of the rumors is not counting grad transfers, and that'll free up some scholarships for players to come. What we mean by there, of course, the grad transfer kids, the kids who have already gotten a degree and are going to transfer to another school for a final year, there's talk of not counting those scholarships for the new team that they're transferring to. There's talks of that. But NCAA has yet to make a decision. And so there's a huge problem right now with the amount of scholarships available and the amount of kids that transferred out thinking they could go somewhere else. They may not get a chance to play football this upcoming year. It's about EA. It's not about EA. It's about the development team they chose. NCAA would probably go back to Tiburon or whatever they merged into and not Frostbite with Madden. It'd be interesting to see what engine they would use for NCAA. 2K should handle sports games from now on. 2K isn't perfect by any means either. But when you start talking football, it's obvious EA has the backing of the football leagues. All the Florida schools have good baseball teams. You just on high because y'all beat Florida. Thank you, Lorenzo. That's the only reason why he want to talk baseball. Man ain't never mentioned baseball, but in his whole time he's been over here, never mentioned baseball. Now all of a sudden he want to talk baseball. NCAA can't override state legislation. More states will rule on these kids' favor, and the NCAA won't have a choice but to pass it. So with that being said, Wayne, why not be ahead of the 8 ball? Why not understand the writing on the wall that if Florida's already approved it, and Georgia's approved it, and Cali's approved it, Texas will probably approve it. There's probably a bunch of other states that I don't know that's already approved it. What are you waiting for, NCAA? Get on board and say, you know what? Okay, the trend is all these states are going to just say these players can have this. Let's put it into effect. NCAA is going to wait to the last minute. Watch. I'm not saying you're wrong, but it seems like EA picks a ton of bad developers. What program would choose microtransactions? Well, that's as a business model, the microtransactions are killing it right now. That's why the game developers all choose it, because as a business model, they're making literally billions of dollars on the microtransactions. Hamilton needs to come through. Hamilton. Who's Hamilton? What you talking about? They didn't pick bad developers when they made all the other NCAA games. So why now? NCAA always has a better game than Med. Actually, hold on. Chat skipped on me. Actually, please don't act. NCAA, just sit there. Let your power erode away more and more, which is what they're doing. Like I said, it wouldn't surprise me in a few years. Maybe not the group of 5. It's possible that some of those group of 5 schools, though, could piggyback off of the Power 5. Some of those group of 5 schools have enough money, have enough power in their own right. But definitely the Power 5 schools, I believe, it's not a matter of if, but when they break away from the NCAA. Maybe it's a few years from now. Maybe I'm thinking 10 years from now, but I think it's eventually going to happen. Yeah, the state of Florida baseball right now reminds me of state of Florida football in the 90s. I'm rooting for the Noles basketball, by the way. How many baseball titles do the Noles have? I'm not doing this with you, John. We're not going to sit here and now talk baseball when I've never even talked baseball on this show. We're not going to do it. Nope. FSU off to a good start. 2022 recruiting. Norvell has 8 win games. Yes, sir, Panama. NCAA is so weak and inept, vacates USC's titles for Reggie Bush. Clemson was busted in 82 for massive violations in 81, but they keep it. Miami football didn't get the death penalty. They're just inconsistent. Like you said, they took Reggie Bush's Heisman at USC. Now, I'm not calling for that to happen, and I'm not calling for this to happen. But if you take Reggie Bush's Heisman at USC for whatever you found, do y'all remember Cam Newton's scandal at Auburn with the money? It happens almost every year, all the time. Who else was it? Oh man, who was it that was signing the autographs? I can't remember, but it was recently. I think it was Todd Gurley. And he had to sit like 4 games or something like that for Todd Gurley for signing autographs. Something stupid. Not Tyrod Taylor, but the boy that played at Ohio State, Terrell Pryor, sells his memorabilia. And nothing, like the NCAA is just so inconsistent. I think everybody agrees that they're inept. NCAA probably is the worst, and it's college, but I don't know the people that run it, man. They're probably the worst. The NCAA serves no purpose other than to hinder programs and athletics and collect money. That's all. Now that's all they do is collect money. You're absolutely right there. They try to act as some sort of overseer, but again, when they show obvious favoritism when it comes to certain deals, and NCAA is so inconsistent. John, don't root for us. Thank you, Montre. We do not want John rooting for us and putting that bad juju on us, John. Do not root for us. By all means, keep your same energy and root against us every chance you get. Fragrance, you don't even believe Percy's the GOAT. You're about an hour late, but we've already established in no way, shape, or form is Percy the GOAT at anything. FSU's pitching needs to improve ASAP. We look messy. It's opening weekend. Don't worry. John a bandwagon. Ride the wave. There you go. I haven't mentioned baseball because it wasn't in season. Football's not in season, but you keep talking about that. Oh, I know there are 47 more games or bets. Okay, y'all talking baseball. Baseball. NCAA pick and chooses who to punish and how severely. There you go. Didn't Johnny Manziel get popped with autographs? Johnny had issues with it. Todd Gurley had issues with it. Again, they pick and choose, man. They pick and choose. Gurley did the autographs, I think, prior traded memorabilia for tattoos. Yep. We had to wait years for sanctions just to find out. Yeah. Y'all sanctions yourself, Keynes. Y'all waited years for all those sanctions just to find out the NCAA mishandled the investigation with y'all and nothing came of it. I'm not even saying Miami deserved the death penalty. That's irrelevant to me. I could care less. But just the NCAA keeping the team in a stranglehold and then botching an investigation is amateur at best. Look at what happened to SMU. They never recovered from the death penalty. That was 35 years ago. Kids today don't even realize that was a perennial. That's when they had Eric Dickerson in the boys' wing. Yeah. Yep. Seems like Percy was the GOAT with them hands. It was reported that Percy used to beat Golden Tate up a lot when he was in Seattle. Percy might be the GOAT with them hands, man. He might be the GOAT with them hands. Fair enough. Fair enough. So, hey, this was another good one, man. As you guys see, with the podcast, with the Hangover, we're going to try not, because I got to put this stuff on Podbean and Spotify, by the way. Follow me on Podbean and Spotify. If by any chance you can't get on your YouTube, click on those apps, listen to this podcast on those platforms. So support the podcast on those platforms. And because I'm on those platforms, I try not to go over, try not to hit that 2-hour mark, but we still got 44 people in here, but I'm going to cut it short. We already debated. It was never a debate. We settled the score. P-Dub, 10 times out of 10 over Percy Harvin. Not even a question. We talked about Dalvin Cook over Reggie Bush, Cam Newton over Vince Young. We settled the debates here today on some of these lasting questions in the college football universe. And we're going to do more of that in the coming days. Also, again, Miami fans, Florida State fans, look out for the battle of the all-time Noles versus the all-time Hurricanes. Again, I will not be picking the team. I will be playing mediator. But we will have a Hurricane fan and a Florida State fan picking their all-time teams, and then we're going to decide. I'll probably let the chat decide, and then it doesn't matter because I can overrule the chat at any time I want. But we're probably going to let the chat decide who wins. So that's something that's going to be coming up here very shortly. I got some other things coming, some big things very shortly, and I don't want to reveal it just yet. But just know we could be having a big time interview coming up here really soon. So be on the lookout for that. But just your boy Polk over here on 863 Seminole TV. You did tune into the Hangover tonight. We did make it very clear that Percy Harvin is nowhere near Peter Warrick in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And like always, stay classy, Seminoles. We at ya. Thanks everybody who tuned in. Have a good night. Stay safe. And we'll see you next time on The Hangover. Go Noles.